Hello and welcome to this video. In the following minutes I will show you how to integrate Apache Kafka with Slack. So this is where projects like Apache Camel can be very useful. Apache Camel allows you to connect with Kafka using the traditional Kafka Connect APIs, making it more natural to integrate your Apache Kafka with other components, like in this case Slack. Let's see how we can achieve this in a couple of minutes without any line of code or without creating any additional components. The first thing I'm going to do is create a Kubernetes cluster, because I'm going to be using Streamc, that it's the way to run Kafka on Kubernetes using a kind cluster. So let's create a kind cluster, create cluster. Meanwhile the cluster is being created, I'm going to share with you the project. So Apache Camel, as we mentioned, has different components. If we go to the Apache Camel page, we can go to the projects tab, and then under the projects we can see the Camel Kafka Connector. So you can go and check the GitHub repo with the different components. They just released the first version. So currently version it's pretty new. They're just on version 0.1.0. Still, it's the Apache Camel components are very mature. They have been in the market for like 10 years. So you shouldn't have any trouble with the connectors, and just the wrapper that is the one that is been released just like this week and around end of April. So if you want to really download this, we need to go to the Maven repo, and so you can go here to the Apache Camel Kafka Connectors, and there's like plenty of connectors to check. So in this case we're gonna look for the as we mentioned, we're gonna use the Slack connector. So we're gonna look for Slack. So here's the Slack connector. As we mentioned, there's just the first release, so version is 0.1.0, and then we can go and download from Maven Central. So you can just browse. And one important thing is that you will need all the different libraries to make this run. So instead of just using the jar, we will need to download the package, so we can deliver as part of the Kafka Connect plugins all the different libraries that are required for this connector to work, as we're gonna use container image to run on a Streamc. So let's just get the Slack Kafka Connector package. You can download the tar or the zip file. In my case, I'm just gonna download the tar file. And now if we get back to the command line, we can check that the kind cluster is up and running. So the first thing we want to do is install Streamc. So Streamc is one of the sandbox projects from CNCF to run Kafka on Kubernetes, so we can get a cluster running on top of Kubernetes very easy in a declarative way. So I don't need to configure and install everything, so I can just use custom Kubernetes custom resources to make this work. So Streamc install from the quick starts. It's going to be pretty easy. So we're not using Minikube because it uses a lot of resources, so that's why we're using kind. We already created a kind cluster. So in this case, we're just gonna create a namespace called Kafka. So we create the namespace Kafka. Okay. Now we just need to apply the custom resources to create the cluster operator. In this case, we're using the latest version of Streamc, that is 0.17.0. We now run this command. See that everything was applied. Check that everything's running. So I'm just gonna do some aliases KC for kubectl. So KC get pods and watch for the pods. So I didn't move to the correct context, so I'm gonna just do again, but now this time in the Kafka namespace. Okay, so as we mentioned, there's container creating, so it's downloading the image and then starting the operator. So first we need to deploy the streamc operator, using the operator pattern to check the resources and then apply all the changes required to have the desired state. That's how the operator works. You have a custom resource that is like a Kafka resource where you can define the information on how to you want to configure your Kafka cluster, the Zookeeper cluster, and then just the operator starts to read those resources and then apply the changes following the internal rules of the operator. Okay, meanwhile, the operator is starting. So if you go back to the streamc page, you want to download, you can get, so in this case, you can download the zip file or the tar file, as we mentioned. I can check it's in the downloads and it's already unzipped there. So I have several versions here. So we have some examples of type Kafka, and then in this case we're gonna use the Kafka ephemeral because I don't really need some persistent storage because this is just a demo, and we just want a single one. So we're just gonna see the Kafka resource. So this resource, it's called, I'll just change the name to streamc, and I'm just gonna deploy a Kafka cluster based on version 2.4.0. Just doing one replica. I'm just going to enable 2 listeners. So this is one of the things that streamc does for you. You can enable the listeners and configure all the IP addresses and ingress controllers that you need to make them available. In this case, we're just going to get the plain connector, so we can just connect to the port 9092 and TLS to connect to 9093. We're configuring the cluster to have just one node. So we need to change the defaults of the configuration for the topics to have just a replication factor of 1. Default is 3, so because we don't have 3 nodes, then it will fail. Storage is ephemeral as we mentioned, but we're keeping the 3 Zookeepers nodes for the cluster to be running. And we're going to be deploying the entity operator for managing the topics and the users, even though we're not going to be using these ones here. So this is the Kafka resource that I'm gonna apply. So then let's see how the pods are coming. Okay, my pod is also running now. If you want to follow the logs, you can just do kc logs deployment streamc cluster operator -n Kafka. Okay, let's go back to the pods. Okay, shouldn't be run here, and then we need to apply at the Kafka namespace. So we're doing that now. The cluster should be checking that there's a need to reconciliate, and then we can just check the pods, and now you can see that Zookeeper it's starting. So we are deploying 3 nodes from Zookeeper cluster 0, 1, 2. When those nodes are up, then we will be able to see how the Kafka broker it's getting up. The Kafka cluster it's coming up. We can take a look at the rest of the resources. So if we check the CRDs that were installed, so we can check the different resources that we can configure using streamc. We can use Kafka bridges, we can configure Kafka connectors that run on top of Kafka Connect clusters. If you're running an OpenShift, you can use the S2I to create the images, but because I'm running on the Kind cluster, I won't be able to do that. But we can take a look at that too if you're interested. User topics and obviously the Kafka cluster. I already create. So I will be using this little project. So one of the things that I'm creating in this project is that I will need to create my container image with my plugins for working with StreamC and Kafka Connect. So I just define a simple Docker file that it's using the StreamC Kafka images for base for my container image, and then I'm just copying whatever is in my plugins directory to the Kafka plugins directory. So when the Kafka cluster starts, it will auto-detect the connectors that I deploy there, and then we'll be able to use them. So in my plugins directory, I do have a couple of connectors from Camel. So there are like more than 200 connectors that you can use. Currently, I'm just creating this image to have a couple of them. So we mentioned we're going to use just the Slack one, but you can use like timer if you want to trigger some messages into Kafka, so that you can react with streams and then apply other enterprise integration patterns, or if you just want to log the content of the topic. Okay, so the first thing is we need to build the image with these plugins, because the image StreamC delivers by itself is it includes only the file and sync and source connectors. So we want to enhance that image with our own connectors. So in this case, I can get back to my CLI, and then I just need to build. So as I'm running Docker, just Docker build my downloads, then Kafka Connect Docker file, gonna tag this as Camel Kafka Connectors 0.1.0, and then the file, the working directory is Kafka Connect. Okay, if I run this, so now that I have my Docker image, then I can use that for my cluster. Let's see how the cluster is going. Okay, my cluster is up and running, so I can start deploying other components. So go back to my project where I create. So I'm just going to be using these resources. So I basically create a Kafka Connect custom resource for StreamC to manage. It's named Camel, and I'm enabling this annotation that it's called use connector resources, and I'm enabling this for using actually the connector resource. If you know, Kafka Connect can enable the API, the REST API, so you can configure that using REST calls. But one of the cool things about Streams is that you don't need the REST API, because you can enable StreamC to manage the custom resources for the connector. So I basically just do the post for you, but you can then just configure this easily. I'm telling StreamC to use my custom image, so the Camel Kafka Connectors image that we just create, and I'm telling that it needs to connect to my StreamC cluster that we just create. So one of the things that StreamC does, it's create the services for you in Kubernetes. So if you say get services at the Kafka level, you will see. So in this case, I'm using just the StreamC Kafka bootstrap. That is the cluster IP that we need for that. So that's the one that we are using, and because we're using the plain connection, we are just using the default port 9092. We're just commenting the resources because, as I mentioned, I'm just using a kind, so I don't really want to enforce these limits. We're turning off the Java VM options, and because you can have several clusters running at the same time, we just defining a group ID. In this case, is my Camel cluster, and we're configuring also the topics for the configuration and the status and the offsets of this Kafka cluster, this Kafka cluster. And because we are just having one Kafka broker, we also need to specify the replication factor for these three topics to be just one. And again, I just need to apply that resource on the Kafka on the Kafka namespace. So now we can see that the Camel Connect is being created, but there's an image error pool because we didn't load the image. Can load. So basically, we need to load first the image that we create because that image is only in my laptop registry. So we need to load this container image to the kind cluster so we can use that. That's why we got the error image pool at the beginning. Okay, meanwhile the image is loading. I'm just going to show you the next step. So after we create the Kafka Connect cluster, we need then to configure the connector. So in my case, I'm just going to configure the connector. So what I want to do is take messages that are coming into a Kafka topic specific and then just send them to Slack. I have a Slack workspace called KC Demo where I just create a channel called Kafka Connect Demo. Just create the bot name that it's called Kafka Connect. So this is the name of my bot. This is the full name for that one. Just create an incoming webhook. So I need to activate this to receive messages so I can publish it into the channel. And I need to copy this information. Let's see if the image was loaded. Okay, the image is already there. So now I can apply again my resource, now in the correct namespace. Getting back to the configuration of Slack, then you can get the Kafka connector. So this is a different kind. So the previous one is Kafka Connect. This new one is Kafka Connector. And we need to just give it a name. So in my case, the name is Camel Slack Connector. We need to tell which Kafka Connect cluster it's going to be target. In this case, my Camel Connect cluster is called Camel. So you can see the previous YAML file. It's the name is Camel. So that's the one that we're going to use. And here we start to configure the connector. So in my case, I'm using, as I mentioned, the Camel Slack Sync connector. So we need to define the class. My case is just one task at the same time running. And then here's the configuration. For the sync connector, we just need to define what's the topics that we're gonna be reading from. In my case, it's just a simple topic called test, and then we need to unroll and convert the key and the value into string values, so we can then just send the plain string to Slack. And we're gonna be publishing on the channel called Kafka Connect Demo. That is the channel that I show you, and this is the name of my my bot, Camel Kafka Connect. And then, well, here's the webhook URL. So let's get back to the pods and check that everything is running. Okay, so my Camel Connect cluster is now up. It's running now. So everything's fine. I have my 3 zookeepers, 1 Kafka, my 2 operators, and then my Camel Connect cluster. As we mentioned, because the Camel Connect needs to manage their own offset and configuration, we should get the Kafka topics created. Yep, here we have the Camel Connect clusters for the configuration, the offset and status, which is the consumer offset. So as we mentioned, you can also manage your Kafka topics as custom resources. So that's pretty cool too. We can then apply the connector resource. So Kafka Connect, and the connector for Slack, and then that's up again. Kafka, and then we can just check the logs on the Camel. Okay, my Camel route was able to start, so we can check that the Camel route was started. it's consuming from a direct start, and we are trying to publish into Slack, so you can also get more information about the settings for this connector. Let's check that everything is running. So I have my Slack space. So it's KC exec IT on the string broker 0. The name's Kafka, and then we just want to get a bash CLI. Kafka 0. The pod has all the different shell scripts that we can use to interact with the cluster. So in this case, I'm just gonna use the Kafka console producer broker list. Because I'm attached to the actual broker, I just can use 1992. And then for the topic, as we mentioned, is topic test. So this will enable us to connect to the cluster, so I can start sending messages. So in my case, I'm just gonna say hello team, and then that should be sent to our service. And yes, now I am sending a message through Kafka to my topic test, and that message is being received in using the Slack. So hello team, we are now connected to Slack. Awesome, we are receiving all the notifications in our channel, and in this way we can start just creating more complicated interactions. One of the cool things about these kind of connectors, the Apache Camel connectors for Kafka, we just need to configure the connector to get the information in and back. So it's pretty straightforward. No need to create any routes and do any Java configuration or DSL to configure the route. It's pretty straightforward. And we can use, for example, the Slack connector to get messages into Kafka as well as to Slack, right? So that connector can be used as a sync connector as well as a source connector, and get messages not only from Kafka to Slack, but also from Slack to Kafka, so we can take actions with the information we receive. So thank you very much for following this video, and I hope you like it. See you next time.